was here for about 5 or 6 months, since December. And I support Bradley Manning, and I would urge all of you to sign the petition where we're seeking his freedom, we're seeking his pardon. He chose, and it's very clear that he knew what he was doing. This was an act of conscience. He chose to release war logs from Iraq and Afghanistan. He released a couple of videos, one of which has been published on WikiLeaks. He released some interrogation logs from Guantanamo. He released information that showed that the Iraqi army, allies of the U.S., was involved in torture dozens, if not hundreds of people. First Amendment trial in a generation. Perhaps the most important, one of the most important trials in American military history, really. You may remember Daniel Ellsberg, you may not, but about 40 years ago, Mr. Ellsberg released information that told us things we needed to know about the conduct of the Vietnam War. Now, 40 years later, we have a parallel. And it's quite possible that Daniel Ellsberg has been one of the most active advocates for Bradley Manning. We urge you to sign this petition. The trial starts on June 3rd. Private Manning has pled guilty already to 10 charges. He will likely get the maximum 20 years in prison for these charges. The fight here is over the aiding the enemy charge. If Bradley Manning is guilty of aiding the enemy, any newspaper article that reports on the reduced military budget is aiding the enemy. Any statement that we make that is critical of the way wars and government policy are conducted is aiding the enemy. It's an absurd charge. It's a capital offense. They're not seeking the death penalty, but they're seeking life in prison, and this kid does not deserve to spend his life in prison for an act of conscience that has divided all of us. Young world people.
That's not that sound.
It will be influential for years to come. Anyway, support Bradley Manning. Follow this trial. It's being conducted in secrecy. We can't even get transcripts without taking them down ourselves. There's a project to crowdfund the court stenographer because we can't get the information in writing. What are they writing? So pay attention to this case. Bradley Manning is really the symbol of free speech, the First Amendment, the anti-war movement. Sign this petition, follow this trial to free Bradley Manning.
Do that. Whatever other kind of things we're going to do, we're committed to that. And one of the things we can do to help it today, and we urge you to help it, we've got his back, that's the easy part. What we have to do is get you to get his back, and the way we can do that today, right here, right now, is to sign the petition we have directed to the Secretary of the Army to tell the Secretary of the Army to drop the charges against Bradley Manning. We got it right here. Just takes a minute. If you don't have a minute, go online. To Google Bradley Manning, you'll get the Bradley Manning Support Network. They've got the petition link right there. Takes you 30 seconds and you can feel good. You can say, look, I stand against the American atrocities in Afghanistan and Iraq. I stand against the American war policy and the American foreign policy in the Middle East, or whatever reason you want to have. And this is how I showed the way. This is the way I showed it. By signing for Bradley Manning to get the charges dropped against the heroic WikiLeaks whistleblower Bradley Manning. So we're in a last-minute desperate struggle here. We've only got a few days left. We've got to get some more signatures here. I sound like a Connie man here. But it really comes down to that. We really got to get it. We've got a big signatures here. Because if we get a few more, just maybe, the Secretary of the Army will say, well, hey, you know, we can't do this thing. This is wrong. It's not, the odds are against us, but we got to still do this desperate struggle here the last few days here to get some more signatures. We'll also be down at Park Street on Saturday as part of the International Day of Solidarity with Bradley Manning, and we'll be on Saturday. We'll still be having our petition. We'll still be trying to get those last signatures in before the Monday trial. So we're committed. We've got Bradley's back. We want you to have Bradley's back, and the way you can do it right today, right now, we've got the petition right here that you can sign. Just takes you a minute. There's other things you can do, and we'll talk about those as the weeks go on, but right now the petition's the key, and the other key is to get to that rally on Saturday, to show by our numbers in Boston and down at Fort Meade and out in California. Out in California and San Francisco, they're also going to have a big rally for Bradley. In Los Angeles, in London, I don't know, I think there's 75 places. The last time I counted, there were 75 places in the world that were going to do something, either in front of a military base or in front of the American embassy someplace. And what they're going to be doing is saying one thing. It's not like a whole big agenda. There's only one thing. And that's to drop the charges against Bradley Manning, to save the life of Bradley Manning. They want to put him away for life, and we say, hell no. Yeah. We definitely say hell no, and Susan Hiccup.
How can we have democracy without the facts? That's what Bradley Manning was trying to bring to our attention. Facts about what the U.S. Army was doing in Iraq, war crimes. And he tried to go through the chain of command. And his commander, instead of paying attention to the facts, which were incriminating, told him effectively to put his head down, like Al was saying. And then Bradley Manning went trying to go to the New York Times and to the Washington Post to bring the facts out to the people of the United States. And again, it gets turned down. And only then does he try to go beyond the New York Times. But WikiLeaks is a press no different, in effect, than the Washington Post or an AP, and trying to bring the facts out to us. The truth is, we need facts, again, in order to have democracy. And there have been, for example, 20-some changes in how consumer inflation is measured, and each one tends to lower the estimate that we're given about the real inflation by underweighing the rise in gas prices, underweighing the cost of education, underweighing the cost of health, underweighing the cost of housing. And what we need is a Bradley Manning in that Census Department to tell us what's going on. Otherwise, it's suppressed from us. And Obama's trying to do the same thing now with changing the measure by which any increases in Social Security are paid. So again, for us to have democracy, we need the facts, and that includes in the military field. Africa. What's the United States military doing in Africa? And without the Bradley Mannings, and not in prison, but without Bradley Mannings and this courage to resist, we're not going to get the facts. So one after another government action is now being brought under one or another form of secrecy act. And simply revealing those can lead to this kind of imprisonment and torture. So this is what we're here about. We're here to free Bradley Manning, to develop that courage to resist, above all to bring the facts to the population in order that we can make informed decisions.
Standing with this group for about 5 or 6 months, since December. And I support Bradley Manning, and I would urge all of you to sign the petition where we're seeking his freedom, we're seeking his pardon. He chose, and it's very clear that he knew what he was doing, this was an act of conscience, he chose to release war logs from Iraq and Afghanistan He released a couple of videos, one of which has been published on WikiLeaks. He released some interrogation logs from Guantanamo. He released information that showed that the Iraqi army, allies of the U.S., were involved in torturing dozens, if not hundreds of cases. And the Americans have covered it up. His trial starts on Monday, June 3rd. This is the most important First Amendment case in a generation. It's the most important First Amendment case since Daniel Ellsberg released the Pentagon Papers. First Amendment trial in a generation. Perhaps the most important, maybe the most important, one of the most important trials in American military history, really. You may remember Daniel Ellsberg, you may not, but about 40 years ago, Mr. Ellsberg released information that told us things we needed to know about the conduct of the Vietnam War. Now, 40 years later, we have a parallel. It's quite possible that Daniel Ellsberg has been one of the most active advocates for Bradley Manning. We urge you to sign this petition. The trial starts on June 3rd. Private Manning has pled guilty already to 10 charges. He will likely get the maximum 20 years in prison for these charges. The fight here is over the aiding the enemy charge. If Bradley Manning is guilty of aiding the enemy, any newspaper article that reports on the reduced military budget is aiding the enemy. Any statement that we make that is critical of the way wars and government policy are conducted is aiding the enemy. It's an absurd charge. It's a capital offense. You're not seeking the death penalty, but they're seeking life in prison, and this kid does not deserve to spend his life in prison for an act of conscience that has divided all of us. That will be,
That's not taking
it
sound.
will be influential for years to come. Anyway, support Bradley Manning. Follow this trial. It's being conducted in secrecy. We can't even get transcripts without taking them down ourselves. There's a project to crowdfund the court stenographer because we can't get the information in writing. Everybody writing. So pay attention to this case. Bradley Manning is really the symbol of free speech, the First Amendment, the anti-war movement. Sign this petition. Follow this trial to free Bradley Manning.
He said we have to free him. He told the truth about what was going on. They know the truth. They know the truth of what happened with the American troops when the American troops were let loose, just like in my time in Vietnam. Those of us who went through the Vietnam period conflict know all about that. All about burning down villages, all about kicking down doors when we were soldiers. And so we have a chance, some of us, especially those of us from Veterans for Peace from the Vietnam area, have had a chance to stand in solidarity with somebody who's done what we did not do, which is to hang. We hung our heads down. We said, we kept our heads down. We listened to the drill sergeant. He said, keep your head down, you don't want to wind in Fort Leavenworth. And we say that Bradley Manning has done a heroic thing by keeping his head up and facing the consequences, not just in Fort Leavenworth, where he has been held for a couple of years now, but over in Kuwait when he was first arrested, and then later when he was put in solitary confinement down in Quantico, down in Virginia, down the Marine base, down in Virginia, in conditions that were very much like Quantico, very much like Guantanamo. I say Guantanamo and I say Quantico. I think I'm saying the same thing. It's really the same kind of thing. Torturous activity by the American government, either on foreign nationals, or in the case of Bradley Manning, an American soldier. And that should give you pause. When they start going after American soldiers for telling the truth about war atrocities, then who's next? Who's next? And I hope, I'm going to finish up this little section here, I don't know how history is going to judge Bradley's act. I said it a little bit earlier, but I'm starting to incorporate this thing. You never know. History's a kind of a funny thing sometimes. I don't know how an individual act, a heroic act by an individual plays out in history. But I know this from the Vietnam period, and I mentioned this before. History has looked very kindly upon Daniel Ellsberg. And if you don't know the name, remember this Pentagon Papers. He's the guy who exposed all of the machinations of the Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon administration in the Vietnam War. And history has looked very, very kindly on Daniel Ellsberg, a single individual who bucked the system, who didn't keep his head down. He said, I've got to do this. And he is basically Bradley Manning's grandfather in the political sense. So I have a feeling that Bradley Manning, when it all gets dusted down, when history kind of gets sorted out, Bradley Manning will have a very prominent place as the WikiLeaks hero. And like I say, when I always do this, I'm trying to make a real point out of this. To finish up my segment here, I stand in solidarity with those three Nobel Peace Prize winners, Desmond Tutu from South Africa, Marion Maguire from Ireland, and Adolfo Escobar from Peru, who last November took out a huge full-page ad, I think it was in The Guardian, and listed their reasons. They said, hey, look it, Bradley Manning has done a service to the international community, and I add to that, to the working people of the world, to the oppressed people of the world. They didn't use that language, but that's what we're talking about here. And that's talking about us. We're talking about people walking in the street and walking in streets all over the world, the oppressed and working people of the world. He has done a great service. And so what they did is they said, because he's done this great service, by exposing these American atrocities and other machinations of this administration, of American administration, they call it on their fellow Peace Prize winner Barack Obama to free one of the 2013 Nobel Peace Prize nominees, Bradley Manning, from his jails. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Keith, and I was walking down the streets of Cambridge, and I felt compelled to stop for this great cause, because I believe as an American that I have freedom of speech through any medium that I choose, whether it be media, the web, the newspaper, or being on a street corner shouting my opinions. And that's why I stopped. Bradley Manning is no more a criminal than you or I. And this does not meld well with what America stands for, which is freedom.
Thank you.
A hard place. Remember those 8 long years? We have one hero, Bradley Manning. He's in jail. He's going up to trial this Monday, so Monday is the day. So all you people who played Monopoly, get out of jail free cards. Send them out to Obama. He's a lonely guy, very lonely. Obama hasn't heard from anybody in a long time. So give him a call. Tell him how much you want Bradley Manning out of jail. It would be wonderful. But whatever you do, don't monopolize the conversation with the get out of jail free card. And you have to think about it too. Is 1,000 days without a trial or a charge against him? Can you imagine? He couldn't even pay cash. He couldn't give him a charge card. Let's face it, Bradley Manning is a guy we have to get out of jail. That was against the 6th Amendment of the Constitution, a speedy trial. A speedy trial. Remember, if you had indigestion and you took speedy Alka-Seltzer, remember that, and it took 1,000 days for you to be cured? You wouldn't say it was speedy Alka-Seltzer. Come on, let's face it. Bradley Manning is the man, the hero. We have so few heroes left. Let's save Bradley Manning from a long-term jail assignment on his aid to the enemy. Aid and comfort to the enemy, that's his charge. Can you imagine aid and comfort? Where is the enemy? Do you know where it is, sir? The only enemy I know now is not the ones out there in other countries. The enemy is right here at home. Don't forget, we've been spending billions and billions of dollars into war. And don't forget what the Bible said, live by the sword, die by the sword. And Bradley Manning is our hero. He told the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. He was the only guy in the Iraq war that was fighting truth decay. So let's save Bradley Manning from a long-term jail. Sign up right here. Sign the petition. Call Obama. And call the congressman. That's a good thing. They're lonely people too. They don't get very many calls. So let them all know about Bradley Manning. And you will feel good. Bradley Manning will feel good. And Bradley Manning Square can go out of business. Thank you very much. That's a good.
My name is P.F. Soto, upandout.org, upandout.org. Americans have to wake up to our illegitimate government. We are not represented in Washington, D.C. Up and Out shows free documentary film screenings every third Thursday of the month. Next, in June, we are Legion about the Anonymous movement, and in July, we have War on Whistleblowers. It's not just Bradley Manning. The Obama administration is cutting out all dissent. All of our wars have been illegal wars for the benefit of the military-industrial complex and the corporations who are making billions off these illegal, immoral, unethical wars. We are in other countries because they have resources. We've done the same thing in the Middle East as we've done in Africa, Indonesia, South America. Americans have got to wake up. Everything you've been told in school, in the churches, in mass media, that we go around the world bringing democracy. Hey, we don't have democracy here. We've lost it. The corporations select who is going to run in our phony, illegitimate elections. The PR machines pay billions of dollars, or they're paid billions of dollars, to sell you a candidate that represents the oligarchy in this country. Stop the wars, support Bradley Manning. Yeah. Bradley Manning is a hero. There aren't many with his guts and courage. And if you don't know him, he's a little guy, 5'5", and he's got 5 feet, I'm sorry, I was just corrected. He's 5 feet tall, and look at his courage. Get off your knees, America. Stand up. Stand up for yourself and the planet. We are being robbed.
Yeah, that's a good, hey, she just made a very good point. You know, we're talking about Bradley Manning, the heroic WikiLeaks whistleblower. But this government, this Obama government, while President Obama has signed the Whistleblower Protection Act in 2011, this administration has prosecuted more whistleblowers than any other administration, including the George Bush administration. You thought that was bad, right? But they have 6. And at some point, you know, right now we have to be very concentrated on Bradley Manning as he goes to trial next Monday. But, you know, in other weeks as we stand here in solidarity while he's facing trial, we can start bringing up some of the other cases as well, because he is just, for our purposes, the poster person of the whistleblower struggle, of the anti-war struggle, of the political prisoner struggle right now. But there are other things and other people that are going on, and I'm glad she brought that up about the question of whistleblower. Riley Manning's the tip of the iceberg, and we've got to work on it this week because he's going to trial on Monday. We've got a day of solidarity coming up on Saturday, 1 o'clock at Park Street, down on the Red Line, Park Street on the Red Line, 1 o'clock. We'll be standing in solidarity with Bradley Manning, a worldwide solidarity. Some of us are going down to Fort Meade. That's where the court-martial is going to start on Monday. On Saturday, there's going to be a main rally right in front of Fort Meade. Right in front of Fort Meade, where he's going to be tried. There's going to be a large, hopefully a large rally.
Freedom of speech.
Calling for dropping the charges right now, though. We got a legal case right now. Transparency and all those kind of things. But right now, we got to spring Bradley Manning. And somebody said, who's that? Yeah, somebody said, we got to spring Bradley Manning. And the way we can do it right now, today,
I already signed.
Is to sign this petition over here, and the petition is directed to the Secretary of the Army, because the Secretary of the Army has the authority, just like the President of the United States, to drop the charges against Bradley Manning.